What it do, YouTube? It's your boy Nano, and I'm back again on the channel, man. Look, it's been a minute, bro. I'm not gonna lie, like, I don't got videos that I've been trying to post. I did, but then reviewing it, I'm like, you know what? Kind of just pushing it off to the side. But today, I gotta drop a video. And as y'all could tell by the title, bro, we gonna be doing a talk vid on the topic of how can you tell it's God's voice or your voice? Have y'all ever just sat there and said, yo, was that my voice or is that God's voice? And you start overthinking. And then you feel like, you know, what you said felt right, but then you start doubting. I have been to plenty times, bro. So first, how can you tell, right? God's voice will always align with his words. It won't contradict what he's saying, even if it feels right. For an example, right? You and your friend, y'all get into an argument and you felt led to just cut them off, bro. That does not mean that, you know, that's God's voice telling you to cut them off, right? God's voice will always align with scripture. You know, it may not always feel comfortable, but it's always going to be consistent with the truth. You know, the biggest thing that I always like to say is relationship too with God. Because if you don't got a relationship with God, I feel like it's going to be really hard to be able to even tell if it's him or not. The example I like to use, for example, let's say your mom, right, is looking for you in a loud environment, like a party maybe. Out of everybody there, is that my mom, Con? Why? Because you got a relationship with her. Whether it's your friends, whether it's your family, because you have a relationship, you're able to recognize the voice, right? So same thing goes with God, honestly. If you have a relationship with him, you'll also be able to tell and differentiate whether it's your own voice or God's. And, you know, we're all victim of it. Sometimes we think that it's God, but the whole time it's really us just going with our own flow, our own rhythm. Another thing is God's, you know, whatever God is telling you, it should be able to bring you peace, not panic. You know what I mean? Yours will often bring you pressure. You feel like you gotta rush it. That's how you know it's just not God's voice, because God will never tell you to just rush anything. You know what I mean? So even when he challenged you, for example, like you might feel like you're in a challenging position, but yet you still feel like there's a stillness to it. You know, you still feel calm knowing, okay, I'm gonna get through this. Your own voice will spiral. You know, you'll overthink, you'll go from one thing to another, you'll jump from scenario to scenario, and you'll start feeling unsure. Right? That's how you could tell one of the ways that, you know, it's most likely just your voice. Because God, his voice will be still. His voice, you'll feel calm, you'll feel still. Yours, like I said, confusion, you'll go back and forth with your own self. Another example I like to use is conviction versus condemn. God does not condemn us. Conviction looks more like, you know, hey, you're better than this, you know, come closer to me. That's what God is telling us. Condemnation, you know, when you feel like you're being condemned, that's more like you messed up, stay away from God. Right? God would never tell you to not go back to him. When you feel guilty of anything, you know you done something that you shouldn't have. When you feel that, like, that guiltiness, that's God inviting you back closer to him. But when you hear like, oh no, you messed up, you know, I'm not even gonna go ask for forgiveness, I already messed up. That's condemnation. You're condemning yourself right there. And God doesn't do that to us. His anger lasts but a moment, but his mercy lasts forever. I always say that, like, when people see people go to church, like out here, like, oh no, like I'm too bad for church, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I'll probably need a lot of holy water. Like, this is stuff that I hear from a lot of friends, and a bunch of people. But the thing is, right, so when you're sick, where do you go? Right, when you're really sick or you need something, you need attention for medical care, where do you go? You go to the hospital, right? The spirit is no different. The church is a hospital for sinners. Let me say that again. The church is a hospital for sinners. The word of the Lord brings healing to the soul, brings peace, clarity of mind. And for all my people out there struggling, going through any type of spiritual warfare, which, you know, I'll do a talk on how you'll probably know you're going through a spiritual warfare. Anybody in tune or trying to get closer to God will go through those things. it's necessary in a sense, because that's the moment where you're going to be refined and, tested. Even Jesus Christ got tested, so we're no less than that. You know what I mean? We'll definitely be tested in our own ways, especially when you're aiming for a path where the enemy doesn't want you to go, right? So, anyways, you have to understand that his voice is one with peace. He's not here to shame you. He's not here to bat you down with your own guilt. That's the enemy whispering. God corrects us and brings us back, not push us away, right? And God's voice is still, like I said, it's not like frantic. It's not like, you know what I mean? Here's another example, right? If you're hearing act now or you'll miss out on this, that's being rushed. That is not from God. That's one thing I actually learned before even like studying or going deeper into knowing how is it God versus how is it you. The enemy will always want you to rush your decision. You know why? If you make a mistake, how can you look back on it? That's why anger could be dangerous, right? Sometimes we're all guilty of it. Sometimes we let the emotions get the best of us. I'm guilty. You're guilty. Your mom, your dad, siblings, your friends, all guilty of this. You get so upset. You allow the flesh to kind of like, kind of take control and say things out of emotions, even if you didn't mean it. And sometimes we might say things that we can't come back from, that might really hurt. It might take time to heal. It might take effort for whoever you might have hurt to, show them some, affection and love and kind of build whatever might have to be built back depending on what's being said. So it's kind of the same thing with decisions in life. Sometimes not sometimes, all the time, we should be able to discern every action that we should make. It doesn't mean things like, oh, do I want McDonald's or Chick-fil-A? You know what I mean? It's not, but it's not bad if you ask too, like, Lord, should I go to McDonald's or should I go to Burger King? Or should I go to Chick-fil-A or should I go to Walmart or should I go to Target? Should I go to Lowe's or Home Depot? You know what I mean? It's more so of any decision that, you feel like is important too. A college you might be able to pick, a job, these things, because sometimes we can get in these environments that isn't really what God wanted us to be in. And because the Lord allows it. Because the thing about God, see, I'm a kind of believer things happen for a reason, but not really. Because I look at God like he can turn anything ugly into something beautiful. That's how I view it. Because do I think that God, like, oh, everything happens for a reason. He wanted you to go through, for example, like, have all these kids before marriage, for an example, or I don't know, get into that relationship that you knew you should have been in, or you saw the red flags and continue to stay in it, but it was really toxic. And I mean toxic. Did God really want that for you to be hurt? I don't really think so. But I think that God could take that ugliness, that pain, that hurt, and turn it into passion. That's how I look at it. I don't really think that God would want somebody to go through a abusive relationship or have any, a woman become a single mother, or, for the men out there who are single fathers to be single fathers, because that's what God wanted for you. I just think that God might, I don't think I know God calls the unqualified to turn them to be qualified. So, for example, right? So back to the Lord's voice, when you hear it, right, you'll feel that kind of calmness. So we'll use Elijah, the prophet, for example, right? He didn't hear God's voice, in the wind or a fire or earthquake, but in a gentle whisper. It's not going to be fully aggressive. It's not going to make you feel frantic, pressured, panic to answer quickly, but gentle. You feel me? Your voice, your own voice, tends to be more loud and reactive. And if it's not your voice, sometimes it's just the enemy. God also will lead you to surrender. God, majority of the time, is actually going to tell you to let go and trust him. That's why he says in Psalms, lean not on your own understanding. Because your own understanding, you're going to do whatever you feel like might be best for you in that current situation, when God has already looked at the whole outcome. Like, oh, don't go here. Come over here instead. That's how God operates. When it comes to just us, your own voice, we tend to want safety, comfort, and control of the situation. when God actually calls you to get out of the boat and have faith. Right? Let's use the example when Jesus was in the boat with the disciples and the people, and it was sinking, and they're like, Lord, you're going to let us perish? Like the boat is sinking. And the Lord just calms down the waves and the wind. He says, do you have any faith? He's basically saying, like, do you got any faith? I'm here with y'all. Or when Peter, right? When Jesus was walking on the sea, Jesus called Peter. Peter had his eyes focused on Jesus Christ. And the moment he started noticing the waves and the troubles, he started panicking and started sinking. So the same thing goes for us in a situation when we take our focus off Jesus Christ, we start sinking. Because now we're trying to take control. We want safety. We want comfort. We want it quick too. We don't want to endure as human beings. We kind of don't want to go through that suffering. We don't want to go through that pain, but it is necessary to build you for who you are. Now, the difference is to understand, is this me talking or is this God talking? Is it really from God or is it really just you? Let me just close out with this. God's now hiding his voice from us. Sometimes he's just waiting for you to turn down the noise. That's why you might wake up at 3 a.m. You might have to say a prayer, connect with the Father. Because that's where the Lord might catch you the best, where the noise has cut down. Also, don't just chase a voice. Chase his presence instead. Sit with him. Open the word and let his spirit guide you from the inside and out. Don't just try to chase the voice like, oh, is this God or is this me? Really seek the Father. Seek and you shall find. Ask and you shall receive. Knock and it shall be open for y'all, man. Man, look, I hope that I helped anybody out on this video on how to discern whether it's your voice or God. Basically, is this going to rush me? Do I feel pressured? Did I just do this in a moment of emotion, right? Or does it bring me peace, clarity? Do I feel anxious from this decision or from whatever I've been told from God? Right? So hopefully I could help you guys kind of like figure those two out. But I just wanted to close off with that. Yeah, don't just chase his voice though. Don't always try to go with the voice. Go with his presence. And listen, if I helped you out in any way, shape, or form, helped you on anything on helping learning how to listen, or any of my talks in general, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. Or if y'all revisiting, hit the like for the kid. Let's get to 100 subs, man. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. And if this helped you, or if you might have already knew, send this to somebody who you feel like might need to hear this. Somebody who you feel like is always overthinking. Or if you're overthinking yourself, drop an emoji, prayer hands. This helped. Send it to somebody. I'm learning as I go too, because peace comes when you know who's really speaking, and that's God himself. Catch you on the flip side, man.